will discuss the topic of transitional poets. Transitional poet is coming in between the Augustan poet and the Romantic poets. Augustan poetry is about the order, clarity, rules and decorum, whereas Augustan period is the poetry of the town. The opposite term is romantic poetry. The romantic poetry is about the emotions, imaginations, nature, rural people and solitudes. The transitional poets had elements of neoclassicism as well as romanticism. The transitional poets were reacting against the intellectual Augustan poetry. Their poems were suffused with a sense of mystery and wonder. They were about rural people, death and very romantic themes written in neoclassical style. One of the transitional poets is James Thomson. And James Thomson, who was the earliest transitional poets, and William Collins, who wrote an elegy on Thomson, and the title is In Yonder Grave a Druid Lies, and the Seasons. So it is a truly pastoral romantic poem about the four seasons: spring, summer, autumn and winter. Here the author talk about the countryside and romantic values. The very important aspect of romanticism is nationalism and patriotism. And James Thomson wrote a very popular patriotic poem was Rule Britannica. The another very famous poem is The Castle of Indolence. The author had a very dear friend who is also a transitional poet. His name is William Collins, who wrote the elegy of James Thomson. And another transitional poet, that is Oliver Goldsmith. The Traveler is about a narrator who is traveling abroad. He is feeling nostalgic about his homeland and his brother and writing about it in his poem. The Deserted Village is a rural ideal rural pastoral poems about the village called urban. And next we will move on to the another poet, that is the Graveyard School of Poets. So this their poem is fully covered with the graveyards. Some important authors are there. They are Thomas Parnell, Robert Blair, Edward Young, William Cullen Bryant, Thomas Gray. These people are called Graveyard School of Poets because in their poem it's fully talked about the graveyard. In Thomas Burnell wrote a poem called A Night Piece on Death. Robert Blair, The Grave. Edward Young's The Complaint or Night Thoughts or Life, Death and Immorality. William Cullen Bryant wrote an American graveyard poet, Thanatopsis. And James Hervey's Meditations Among the Tombs. Among them, the very major important poet, that is Thomas Gray. Thomas Gray poems are second most important. He is a second most important poet of 18th century after Alexander Pope. He went for his education in Eton College. His early works were Horatian odes, in which these are all the important odes that which is given here. Ode on a Distant Prospect of Eton College is most famous of Thomas Gray. And next one is Hymn to Adversity. It is written in the form of Horatian ode, and Hymn to Ignorance. It is an unfinished poem of Thomas Gray. And Thomas Gray is one of the important poems, that is elegy written in a country churchyard. It is written in the year 1751. So It is written in graveyard of this church in Stoke Pogs. The theme of the poem is Memento Mori, or Remember You Must Die. And the rustic forefathers do not have grand graves or big tombs, but they also lived their lives and dies peacefully. Actually, during the time of the period, while he was writing this poem, the very famous authors, those who died, for their doom there will be no decorated one, nothing. It is like a simple doom, which is called which is in the graveyard. There are no less than rich people lying in big tombs. Death is the ultimate leveler, when we all are treated equally by death. What the sentence he says, statement that he said is, that is correct, right? In front of the death, there will be no aristocrat, there will be no poor people, there will be no middle people. For the sake of death, we people are equal, right? That's what he said in this poem. And Gray's Ovier, it is his Pindaric ode, and the progress of poesy, a historical view on English poetry. The Bard, it is about the lost of the Celtic bogs, and mock heroic poem is on the death of a favorite cat, an elegy on Horace Walpole's cat that drowned to death. Actually, this poem is dedicated to his friends, Horace Walpole. There is a man called Horace Walpole. In his childhood age, he had a pet animal, cat. Okay, one time, you know what happened? That cat, the pet animal cat, is drowned in the fish tank. So, for the sake of the death of the cat, he wrote a poem called On the Death of the Favorite Called. Only, see, to remember, it is a memoir, maybe it is a memoir of the cat. Okay, and the next one is The Fatal Sisters, and the last one is The Descendant of Odin. And I told you about William Collins, and his odes are famous in this period in 1746. Collins published his second and last collection of poems, ode on several descriptive and allegorical subjects. Ode to fear, ode to pity, ode on a poetical character, ode to evening, ode to simplicity, superstitions ode. These are all the important work of the poet William Collins. And the another man is William Cowper's. His famous work are An Important Forerunner of Romantic Poetry, Tone of Morbidity and Tragedy, The Progress of Error in 1782, The Task 1785, which is a blank verse poem in 6 books. A variety of subjects related to country scenes and domestic interiors. The Castaway, which is a very good poem of William Cowper. It is a depressingly powerful poem that advocates liberty and brotherhood of man. A sailor washed overboard and left